Catherine, you should go home for today, the professor said softly, worry in her voice. Catherine gently set down the petri dish she had been examining and placed her hand on her large, round belly. Thank you, but the experiment will be done in about 30 minutes. That's exactly why you shouldn't push yourself. Your health and the baby's health come first, the professor reminded her. Catherine gave a small, apologetic smile. She had always taken her work seriously. Even now, at 8 months pregnant, she didn't want to stop. She worked as a researcher in a pharmaceutical company, and work gave her a sense of purpose. Her husband, Michael, knew how much her work meant to her, but he worried every day. He always reminded her not to overdo it. Every morning, before leaving for his own job, he made her fresh smoothies to help her stay healthy. Michael was a project manager at an IT company. His job often kept him away on business trips, but he tried his best to take care of Catherine in small, thoughtful ways whenever he could. As Catherine cleaned up her workstation and got ready to leave, her phone buzzed. She looked at the screen. It was a message from her mother. Patricia. Important announcement tonight. Lou Jardin at 7, don't be late. That was typical of her mother. No details, no explanations, just an order. Patricia ran an expensive boutique and cared more than anything about what other people thought. Lately, she was always looking at how many people were following her on Instagram. Catherine's younger sister, Ashley, was just like their mother, but even more so. She was a beauty influencer with 500,000 followers and posted pretty pictures every day. When Ashley first found out Catherine was pregnant, she half joked, "Don't steal my spotlight," but Catherine knew Ashley wasn't really joking. As Catherine walked out of the lab that evening, her phone rang again. This time, it was her grandmother, Eleanor. Hearing her voice made Catherine feel warm inside. "I heard about tonight," her grandmother said kindly. "It's Ashley's engagement party. She's announcing it tonight. The groom is James Anderson. You know, he works at that tech company." Patricia is thrilled, of course. Her grandmother had always been the one person in the family who gave good advice and cared about what was right, not what looked good. Catherine could tell from her voice that she was a little worried, too. "I understand, Grandma," Catherine said softly. After hanging up, she let out a deep sigh. Her sister's engagement was supposed to be good news, but Catherine felt a knot in her chest. Back home, in her quiet house in Chestnut Hill, she stood in front of her closet and pulled out a dress. She didn't want anything too fancy but also not too plain. She looked at her reflection in the mirror, her hand resting on her baby bump. She gave herself a gentle smile. "We'll see each other soon," she whispered to her baby. Her phone buzzed again. It was Ashley's Instagram story. "Tonight will be the best moment of my life." It already had thousands of likes. Catherine could picture her sisters showing the like count to their mother and feeling proud. "Time to go," she whispered to herself. She pulled on her coat as the cold wind outside shook the windows. At Lou Jardin, a fancy French restaurant that wasn't even open to the public yet, Patricia was greeting guests with a big smile. She was wearing an expensive Chanel suit and looked every bit like the queen of her own little world. Expensive champagne sparkled in crystal glasses. Ashley stood next to her mother, dressed in a white designer gown, taking selfies while her fiancé, James, stood by her side with a proud smile. "Where's my sister?" Ashley asked, frowning when she didn't see Catherine. "I told her to rest at home," Patricia said quickly. "She's due in 2 weeks. It wouldn't be good if something happened tonight." Eleanor, their grandmother, raised an eyebrow at that. The diamond necklace around her neck moved slightly as she frowned. "Is she really too sick to come?" Eleanor asked gently. Patricia waved her hand. "This is Ashley's night. If Catherine went into labor here, it would ruin everything, and besides, her big belly in the photos, it would ruin the pictures." Ashley seemed happy with that answer. The live stream for Instagram was ready to start. Back at home, Catherine sat alone on the living room sofa. The house was too quiet. Even Martha, the housekeeper, was gone, sent by Patricia to help at the party. Outside, the bare trees shook in the cold wind. A cup of herbal tea sat untouched in the kitchen. At 7 o'clock, Catherine felt a sharp pain in her stomach. Cold sweat formed on her forehead. She grabbed her phone with shaky hands and texted Michael. "I think the baby's coming. Don't worry, I'm going to the hospital." A few seconds later, a reply came. "Coming home now, booking the next flight. I love you." Another pain shot through her before she could read the whole message. She took a deep breath and dialed her mother's number. The ringtone seemed to go on forever. When Patricia answered, Catherine could hear clinking glasses and music in the background. Catherine, I'm very busy right now. Mom, contractions, they're close together. Catherine forced the words out between breaths, her vision blurred from the pain. Patricia's voice turned cold. We're having a special dinner right now. This is your sister's engagement party. Catherine, can't this wait? In the background, she heard Ashley laughing. Mom, let's make a toast. My sister can wait, someone shouted. Another voice said, the live stream is starting. Music and laughter grew louder through the phone. Catherine's hand gripped her phone so tightly her knuckles turned white. I understand. I'm sorry, she whispered. That's right, call a nurse or something later. You probably just have false labor. Anyway, my followers are going crazy, Patricia said quickly before hanging up. The room went silent except for Catherine's own breathing and the sound of rain hitting the window. Another wave of pain hit her like a punch to the stomach. She looked at the clock. The pains were only 3 minutes apart now. Her hands shook as she opened the taxi app, searching for drivers. The screen glowed back at her as another contraction twisted through her. Then her phone rang. It was her grandmother. Don't worry, Catherine, I've already sent a car for you. It'll be there in 10 minutes. Put on your coat and wait by the door, okay? Tears filled Catherine's eyes when she heard her grandmother's voice, warm and strong, just like always. But Michael, he's on his way home. Take a deep breath, dear, I'm right here. Let's get you to the hospital safely. Stay calm for the baby. Catherine stood up slowly. She grabbed her hospital bag and took out a small white envelope. She placed it carefully on the coffee table, her mother's name written on the front in neat letters. Her phone buzzed again, another Instagram notification. Catherine turned it off. Outside, the black car pulled up in front of her house. The driver stepped out and held a big umbrella for her. The rain fell harder now, tapping loudly on the pavement. To Brigham and Women's Hospital, hurry, her grandmother's calm but serious voice said through the phone. Catherine climbed into the car as another wave of pain hit her. She held her grandmother's hand tightly. No words were needed. That simple touch was more comforting than anything her mother could ever give. Outside, streetlights blurred through the rain as the car drove into the dark Boston night. Through the rain-speckled car windows, Catherine closed her eyes as they drove past Boston Common. She could still hear her mother's cold sigh and her sister's giggles echoing in her mind. Inside the quiet maternity ward at Brigham and Women's Hospital, the world seemed calm, but in the delivery room, Catherine was fighting through waves of pain. Warm lights filled the small room as Catherine gripped her grandmother's hand tightly. Her grandmother never let go. Just a little more, Catherine, said Sarah Miller softly as she moved quickly around the room. Her white coat brushed her knees while nurses prepared tools and checked monitors. The baby is doing well, heart rate is steady, Sarah said. The steady beep of the monitor gave everyone hope. Between contractions, Catherine took a shaky breath. Michael, she whispered, looking at her grandmother. He just got on the plane from San Francisco, her grandmother said, glancing at her phone. Her voice was unusually gentle. She was always strong, but now her love wrapped around Catherine like a warm blanket. A soft ping lit up the phone screen, another Instagram alert. Ashley, Catherine's sister, had posted another photo. It showed their mother raising a glass of champagne at the engagement party. The post already had more than 10,000 likes. Let's turn this off, her grandmother said quietly. She pressed the button, and the screen went dark just as another contraction slammed into Catherine. A wave of pain swept through her body. Cold sweat trickled down her forehead. Deep breaths, Catherine, that's it, Sarah's voice floated through the haze. At that same moment, back at Lou Jardin, the fancy restaurant sparkled with noise and bright lights. The party for Ashley's engagement was in full swing. Patricia, Catherine's mother, was busy live streaming every moment. To her, this celebration, and the likes and comments pouring in, were all that mattered. Mom, what about this photo? Ashley asked, leaning close to her mother and showing off a picture with her fiancé, James Anderson. Perfect, your smile, the lighting, just like a magazine cover. Post it now, Patricia said, ignoring everything else. No one at the party mentioned Catherine or wondered how she was. Back at the hospital, Catherine felt her strength slipping away. She pushed with everything she had left until, at last, a small, clear cry broke the heavy silence. It's a girl, Sarah announced with a bright smile. Outside the window, the rain had stopped, the full moon peeked through the clouds. "You did so well, Catherine," her grandmother whispered, tears shining in her eyes. A nurse gently cleaned the newborn and laid her on Catherine's chest. The baby's tiny warmth spread through Catherine's body like a promise. "Hello," Catherine whispered. The baby's little hand moved as if she was answering her mother's voice. Just then, the door burst open. Michael rushed in, out of breath but smiling wide when he saw Catherine and their daughter. Catherine's eyes filled with tears the moment she saw him. Michael knelt beside her, grabbed her hand, and touched his daughter's tiny cheek. "She's beautiful," he said softly. The three of them stayed like that, wrapped in quiet happiness. They wanted this moment to last forever. A nurse stepped closer and spoke gently. "Mrs. Miller, there's a call from your mother." Catherine shook her head, her voice steady. "Later." Her grandmother nodded firmly. Now was not the time for Patricia, now was only for them. When the sun came up, Catherine's phone showed more than 20 unread messages, all from her mother, most bragging about Ashley's likes and comments online. Moved to a hospital room, Catherine sat by the window in the early morning light. She took out an envelope and opened it. It was time to write the letter she had carried inside her heart for so long. "Dear Mother." As soon as her pen touched the paper, her memories spilled out, 30 years of being invisible, always standing in Ashley's shadow, all the birthdays, graduations, and special days her mother had ignored, and now this night, when she gave birth alone while her mother smiled for the cameras. "After 30 years of loving my sister more than me, tonight has finally set me free." Her hand did not shake. "I won't raise my daughter to know your kind of twisted love." Outside, the city of Boston was waking up. Sunlight shone through the trees along Newbury Street. "Goodbye." She folded the letter, put it in the envelope, and placed it on the table. Just then, her baby let out a tiny sigh. Catherine lifted her gently and held her close. This was her new beginning. Her grandmother smiled and Michael placed his hand on Catherine's shoulder. The phone rang again. Patricia's name flashed on the screen, but nobody moved to answer it. On the third day, Patricia ordered the biggest, most expensive bouquet she could find. Roses and Casablanca lilies, tied up with silk ribbon, a show for everyone to see. It cost over $500. "Send it to Brigham and Women's Hospital, maternity ward," she told the florist. Just then, her phone buzzed with a call from her boutique. "Mrs. Wallace, we're losing customers, they're canceling orders." "The photos from the party, people are talking," the manager said nervously. "Nonsense, it's just gossip," Patricia snapped. But as she ended the call, she noticed her hands were trembling. Her perfect world was cracking. At the hospital, Patricia demanded to see Catherine. "I'm her mother," she said sharply at the front desk. "I'm sorry, ma'am." The patient said no family visitors. The nurse replied. Eleanor Wallace stepped forward, holding the envelope Catherine had written. Patricia recognized her daughter's handwriting at once. Her hand shook as she opened it. "Dear Mother." With every word she read, the color drained from her face. The truth she had ignored for decades was there in black ink. "You reap what you sow, Patricia," Eleanor said quietly but firmly. "But Patricia started. "Be quiet." Eleanor's tone ended the conversation. Down the hallway, a baby's cry echoed softly. That evening, Ashley watched her Instagram followers vanish. Angry comments filled her posts. The next morning, gossip spread through Boston's hospitals and coffee shops. Even loyal customers started leaving Patricia's boutique. "I'm sorry, but we can't be seen with you anymore," people whispered. Meanwhile, at James Anderson's house, a cold silence filled the living room. His mother laid the newspaper on the table. Twisted motherhood in high society glared from the front page. "This hurts our family, too," James's mother said, shaking her head. That night, Ashley stared at her engagement ring as her phone filled with messages from sponsors pulling out. Patricia sat at her desk surrounded by piles of cancelled orders and final warnings from the bank. The house she used as collateral was about to be taken away. She looked at an old family photo. The smiles now looked fake. Rumors swirled in Chestnut Hill. People whispered that the Wallace boutique would close soon. Others asked about the broken engagement. It wasn't a loud, dramatic punishment, but day by day, Patricia's glamorous world crumbled like an old, abandoned house. Back in the hospital, Catherine held her baby close while Michael watched over them. "This is our new path," Catherine said softly. Michael nodded. Eleanor looked out the window, holding her great-granddaughter's tiny hand. 5 years later, spring returned to Boston. Cherry blossom petals floated outside a window at Harvard Medical School. Inside, Catherine looked over research papers for a new cancer treatment. "Mommy," a little voice called out. Catherine turned and saw her daughter, Emily, running toward her. It was their routine. Her grandmother brought Emily from daycare every afternoon. "Emily, don't run," Eleanor said with a warm smile, still graceful with age. "Mommy, look what I drew," Emily said proudly, showing her picture, a garden full of flowers, 3 people holding hands, Emily, her mommy, and her daddy. "It's beautiful," Catherine said, hugging her daughter close. Her lab colleagues smiled kindly at them. In a small apartment across Boston, Patricia sat alone by a window that faced nothing but rain. She hadn't seen her old friends in years. A letter from Ashley sat unopened on her table. Ashley now worked in a small beauty salon far away, her fame gone. "Mom, can't we start over?" the letter asked. Even now, the words felt sly and empty. Patricia looked at her own reflection in the mirror. She didn't even recognize herself anymore. At Catherine's warm family home, the dinner table glowed under soft lights. Michael stirred a pot of pasta while Emily giggled and Eleanor set the table. "By the way," Eleanor said gently, "Patricia sent me another letter this morning." Silence fell in the room. "Dear Catherine, can I see you just once?" But Catherine only shook her head. "I won't reply." Her voice was calm and certain. "Mommy, can I have seconds?" Emily chirped, breaking the heavy air. "Of course, sweetheart," Catherine said, handing her another helping. That night, Catherine stood by Emily's bed, watching her little face as she slept peacefully. Michael wrapped his arms around her from behind. It really was the right choice, she thought. The next morning, mother and daughter walked hand in hand by the Charles River under soft spring sunlight. "Mommy, look at the ducks," Emily pointed excitedly. A mother duck and her babies glided across the water. "Mommy will always be on your side, okay?" Catherine whispered. "I know," Emily said with a big smile. Catherine's heart swelled with warmth. Far off, church bells rang across Boston Common, welcoming a new day. Catherine looked up at the blue sky, the clouds drifting like old memories blown away. "Let's go." Hand in hand, Catherine and Emily walked forward. Everyone who saw them could tell, they were free, they were happy, and they would never look back.